Rebonjour.
Ladies and gentlemen, very good afternoon. Very welcome here on the last but not least session. And in La Villette, Grande Halle. And we are very happy to deal with the innovation. And innovation means a lot. And it is a it has a huge sense. And when we deal with vape, certain persons recently tried to categorize the models of e-cigarettes as compared to the generation. So first generation, but also Cigalike, looking really very much like cigarettes. Then so-called ego model, second generation. And then we have the third generation now, which is very interesting, and analysts like that very much, and they wonder what they are. And these so-called mods, which are, with removable batteries and very, very evoluted material. We'll also try to see how it works. It's not so simple, actually, to define. We are trying here to see the evolution of that market, see from where we started and where we are and what is the direction. So in order to answer to those questions, we'll have the opportunity now to have our friends. And ladies first, we have Liu FUQING, which is the Innokin firm, and she is the sales manager. So good morning to you, good afternoon. And then I have an American friend here coming from the States, Team KLEREKOPER, who is the marketing director for Provape and very well known also. And also we have Antoine PICCIRILLI from who is the scientific director of the Xères labs. He will deal with the e-liquids. So first, I would like to give the floor to our friend, Mrs. Liu FUQING. And before starting, I would like to say that we have had a lot of requests from professionals who would like to come here to introduce their brands, to deal with their products, to explain how is innovation developing. We have, we've been, we had to make choices, so we had to really make a selection, and we were not here to, make advertisement for some products. We want really to see how evolution is made. So we'll ask all of you what is the last innovation and how it is done. So, following the logic behind all those products. So, Mrs. Liu FUQING, you have the floor, please.
Hello, bonjour, good afternoon, everyone. Yeah, my name is Maureen from Innokin Technology. My Chinese name is Liu FUQING. Thank you. Yeah, our CEO, James Lee, would like me to express his apologies for being unable to speak you today with you. And I'm so honored to be here today representing Innokin. It's so exciting for being in such a romantic and beautiful city, Paris, and on such a huge stage. Thank you. Yeah, I'm sorry that I think actually was not able to prepare myself well because the exhibitions in Dortmund and the exhibitions here keep me so busy these days. But I still try my best to share with you for the e-cigarette and vaporization information I collected from my General Manager, Vice President George Xia, our CEO James Lee, and the Marketing Officer Paul. So please be patient. Thank you. Yeah, I think the e-cigarette and vaporizers keep increasing so much today, and there are so many kinds of products in the market. So everyone, would you like to show me your e-cigarette and vaporizers on your hand to see if any of you keep the same? Wow, thank you. Yeah, I think all of you are different, right? Yeah, first of all, I would like to let you know that Innokin actually does not make any electronic cigarettes anymore. We are making the advanced personal vaporizer today. Yes, our devices do not look like cigarettes, and they do not function like cigarettes. Our devices are beginning of an entirely new category that we hope will make the world better for millions of people. So the evolution of this technology is driven by the international vaping community. The manufacturers, brands, wholesalers, shop owners, reviewers, and most of all the vapers. We have all worked together to create this amazing and important movement. Innokin has been at the front of this revolution. At Innokin, we are active in many parts of the vaping movement. We development of technology, progressing of design, participation in social media, and we are active in vaping advocacy. And at Innokin, we lead and never follow. Our engineers and designers strive to create designs and technologies which push boundaries responsibly and safely. Yeah, with above, Innokin have achieved great progress. We increased our employees from 50 to 1,500 now since our foundation in 2011. And we have our after-sales service center in USA and also our warehouse there. And you may know in USA there are almost 15,000 e-cigarette and vaporizer shops there. And our products are sold where 90% of our products are selling where there. Yeah, sorry.
Madame FUQING,
yeah.
Would you please, thank you, put your headsets. So in Innokin today, what about innovation? Does it represent, does innovation, can you hear me? Can you hear the English translation? Can you hear me? Can you hear the English translation? Can you hear me? Good, perfect. So how many persons in Innokin? You've dealt with 1,000 people in the company. How many persons are dedicated to research and development, design, everything linked to the future of the conception of the products, of the design?
We are now having 25 engineers and technicians. Thank you.
D'accord. Je vous laisse continuer, c'était une question.
Please go on. Thank you for answering my question.
Okay, thank you. Yeah, Innokin has more than 7,000 direct vendors and wholesalers, and our products are more and popular in European countries as well, France, UK, Portugal, etc. So you can see this is our team, sales team.
Alors,
Now,
en termes de...
So as far you were dealing with those 25 persons, they are dedicated to their own job. They are trying to create new products. What about the qualification of those persons? Are they engineers, designers? How do you recruit those people? Do they come from special universities? Do they come from, what about that background? Maybe metals or design or engineering? What about their training? How is your equipe, your team, made of?
Thank you for your questions. Yeah, our engineers, yes, they need basically from majored mechanical, technical design, majored by mechanical design, and graduated from college. This is a basic requirement. And also, as I know, our engineers all should have the electronic cigarette experience. So without these 2 points, they cannot enter our company to work as engineers. Yeah.
Donc c'est là où on s'aperçoit.
In fact, So in fact, you can keep your headsets. That industry of the e-cigarette is linked to other branches, other fields, other industries, other qualifications. Here in France, we have created certain centers of training, and we have a more specific qualification, more specific training. What about your main training? Is that the main sources? Is that precision, technical, electricity? Is that interaction with e-liquids? Is that engineering? What is the main profile according to you? What is really that idea?
Actually, including our engineering team and all other departments, we have conducted training courses very frequently, you know. And we ask some technician from EJ's company to have class to us. And also some people were dispatched outside to have some class, maybe were taken by TUV, something like this. Yeah, so they have really received very good training. Yeah.
Et comment ce...
And how is the transmission of knowledge made? Because you know your company learns a lot, learns from the past, but it has a future, of course, to foresee. So how is the know-how made, and how is that knowledge made inside your company? You have responsible of innovation, which will train people, or do you always look for new entries, new person via universities, through companies? How is knowledge, how is the know-how made in your company?
Yeah, in our company, we are doing very good for social media actually. Collect a lot of information from vapors in the market all over the world. I think consumers' comments is always very important to us. So we do social media, for example, Facebook, Twitter, and Reddit, collect all the information. And also we attend all exhibitions all over the world. For example, this April we had the exhibition in Germany too, and May in Poland, and May also in USA, June in USA, July, and September in USA and here. And next year we planned also a lot of exhibitions. For example, Las Vegas, PTC, yeah. And also Poland and England fairs. So we will go there. I think we are trying our best to collect all the information from end users and all good friends. Yeah.
Alors c'est une chose.
This is very interesting. You know, we know in the world that link, which is very, very narrow between the user and the producer. We have received in previous days Phil Buzzardo, and all, you know, is very, very well known as a reviewer. He always tests new materials. And we evoked the how the industrial listen the people. They listen those reviewers. Do you confirm that trend, that new information will, you know, depend on those maybe mistakes that we have done in the past? And you know, you always learn from those mistakes, and also you have feedbacks from your direct users.
I think besides the end users, we also have very strong reviewing team all over the world. So we, for any new products design, we always work out the drawing and collect the comments from the market, from many good friends, reviewer team, and even the appearance, function, and even the name. All these details we focus on very much. And construction also, before mass production, we invest a few months to design, to make a prototype to test, and then we send it to TUV for safety approval, check the details. So all of our products, before we launch, we got CE approval, ROS, and I think it's safely and friendly to end users.
Alors on voit quand on s'intéresse notamment à ces reviewers et
When we have a look at the current events, we have a natural rhythm in the production of products, in how products are made. Even every day something is happening. We have a new entry, new atomizer, new mod, someone who has just invented something, and big brands are always present, yours or others. They have a rhythm, they have a path, a natural path. Do you follow that rhythm? How frequently do you prepare, do you involve new products? How frequently do you produce new items, for example?
I think every 2 months we have new products, and in our factory actually we never follow, and we always have our own design. Thank you.
D'accord. Alors Tim, je me tourne.
Okay, Tim, you have a different approach. It is a different profile from our friend. That rhythm, which is incredible in our industry, we can see it in the reviews. What about you? Are you in a different path? Have you a different rhythm? Why do you have, in that case, a different rhythm? And what is your strategy for development?
I think that Provape's history is very important to how we approach products and even the advancements that we make. The original founders were people who literally stopped smoking because of vaping. That got them interested in the industry. They looked at equipment that was on the market at that time. And remember, this is 4.5 years ago. The industry has changed immeasurably. But they looked at what was available in the market and said, we believe we can make an excellent product in this area. And so they began developing it. And interestingly, when we first started, the two partners, for instance, did everything.
C'était il y a combien de temps?
How much time ago? How much time ago did you start it?
4.5 years ago, I believe. What's fascinating is, as the company grew and the products grew popular, they began adding different members to the team. Now, fortunately, several of the people they added were engineers in the aerospace industry. And that's important because they were trained from the beginning that if they made any mistakes in the product that they manufactured, it could literally cost lives. And so safety, for instance, became a very important part of the philosophy that Provape makes in their products. And one of the mantras we always say is, if you push a button on a Provape and you can vape, it's safe. And that's always been a guiding principle. The excellence of our products, I think, is second. We want to make it the absolute best we possibly can. And one of the things that brings a lot of joy to my heart is when I have people walk up to me and say, this is the first Provape I ever had, and it was like 4 years old, and I don't want to get rid of it, I'm still vaping on it.
Est-ce que vous insinuez que les autres produits sont pas
What do you mean? Do you mean that we must pay attention to security and safety even for the other products?
I actually have challenged some of the mechanical mod industry to keep all of the aspects of mechanical mods but add safety. Is there something you can do without removing the mechanical aspect that will make the product more safe? I think in the United States we're dealing with proposed legislation and government regulation that could change our industry, and the challenge we have is they're not necessarily educated when they're making that decision. So there are some foundational principles, I think, that all companies need to be committed to, and that does not prohibit innovation. It just guides innovation as we go along. So, for instance, we sincerely believe that the number of watts a unit has is not necessarily indicative of progress. Progress is fulfilling the needs of our customers. And that's another thing I would say. I think a lot of companies definitely share this with us, if not all of them, but we are very interested in what our customers need, and we find that through the dealers. Aquatis, for instance, is our dealer here in France. I'm spending several days, I'm going back and talking with their customers. I'm finding what they need, what they want, what they'd like. We're educating them. They are also educating us. And then I go back and I give that information to engineers and other people within the company that begin to translate customer desires. However, we will not violate the basic principles of safety and quality regardless.
La même question qu'à Madame Fujin de
Same question as for our friend. You were dealing with feedbacks from customers, so you, of course, have information outside that, and you come back then in the company. How many people handle that in the company? How many? What does that represent? Those brains? How many people are involved in the staff?
We have a core group of leaders. So we have operations, we have engineering, we have marketing. Then we have people who, kind of lead the entire process. In the engineering team, I think we added it up. It's around 300 years of engineering experience combined, a lot in the aerospace industry, and they are also vapors as well. So they have personal experience, and one of the gentlemen in our company has more patents on batteries than I think some companies do. And so they have basic knowledge and information gained from other industries. They've had years of experience now in ours.
Au total, Provape,
So for Provape, how many employees precisely are dedicated to the research and development?
Provape never gives information out about anything.
alors une autre
They're
question
like the
détournée.
Pentagon. No, I have no problem answering that question. I believe we have about 15 engineers on staff.
D'accord.
One of the things, by the way, we mentioned, we have a young engineer who is just brilliant. And we pulled him out of university as soon as he finished his degree. And we set him to a task of inventing a system, developing a system that will allow us to analyze batteries, because batteries are such an integral part of these type of systems. And I watched this young man develop this, and we now have the ability to find specs on batteries that are incredibly helpful to us in innovation. But I have to one day I said to him, what would you like to do in the next 20 years of your life? And he said, I want to go and work with Dell. And I thought, well, I used to know Michael Dell, and I was in the computer industry. And he said, oh, no, sir, no, Dell, which is our head engineer.
En termes de chiffre d'affaires, alors,
How about turnover? What about proportions? What is the proportion which is re-injected directly in research and development?
I have absolutely no idea of specific figures. I can tell you, we're kind of compartmentalized, but I can tell you this. A significant amount of money is, it's kind of depending upon where we are in the process of developing. Let's be honest, we've had what, one mod introduced in the last 3 years? We've had a variable voltage system for the last 2.5, 3 years. We made one change.
ça veut dire que vous passez énormément de temps à concevoir.
So you spend less time creating those mods, or is that a commercial strategy waiting for creation of the perfection?
Well, yes, and in fact, I think if I could accuse anything of
Vous
our
dormez en
engineers,
fait pendant
Okay, you sleep while the other works.
we over-engineer almost everything. Marketing people and engineers, have to get along, and we do have a wonderful relationship. I think we are always innovating. We are always developing new products, but the products we had that were variable voltage were meeting our customers' needs. Our dealers were happy. Our customers were satisfied. We saw what was happening in the industry. We wanted to address what was happening in the industry. And I don't want to sound the least bit arrogant, but we have never forgotten the foundational reason for our company's existence, and that is to get people to stop smoking, to give them an alternative that is safe, that is effective. And the new products that we are developing, we feel will do that in a more efficient way, in a more effective way. We have some wonderful new ideas and some things that we've put in, but I've also noticed there are 1 or 2 companies who have put out 1 or 2 things, developments recently, that I wish we had. And we're working on them, and we may introduce them. To us, that is not a negative thing. Provape will work with any company. A good example, we have a new thread system, the P3 thread. We believe that it has a better electric connection. We feel it's far superior to the 510. And what we did is make it an open design. I have given out, I don't know how many USB drives with the specific designs, and we have said we'll not only give it to companies like Aspire and Kanger and Slamesto, et cetera, we'll give it to anyone who wants it. We will also make it available to some of our competitors. If they feel this is a better standard and it helps the industry as a whole, we would give it to them freely. And that's another thing about innovation. We've talked about that. We love the idea of sharing things that are beneficial for the entire industry. We'll always be able to compete. We'll come out with new things. But what things can we share? A good example of that is, I have been so delighted with this trade show. I mean, this expo has been delightful. I've seen innovation that has impressed me. I am vaping on French e-liquid.
Alors justement, au niveau de cette innovation-ci,
What about innovation? I know it's difficult to realize because we have a new product each week, each month. We have new branches and you know, a lot of things that may be in opposition. But if we go back in time and if we see the first figures of Gibbert and we look at the new products of today, boxes or other things, do you think we can manage to make big directives, big axes, and to identify key points, key moments in the development of the product, mainly, for example, bottom coil or you know, where coil is above, for example, or ego models, ego tanks? What about that? Could you you know, I suppose they had a role which was important in the innovation. So what are the most important key moment in the history of the development of e-cigarette?
Provape has been an interesting company for me. I've been in the vaping industry for 4 years. I've been the director of marketing for 6 months. I love the company. I love the culture of the company. It's very much a family. They treat their employees very well. We appreciate our relationship with our dealers. We listen to our dealers. A good example, when we put our last product, we allowed our dealers to acquire 2 of them, and we asked them to use them for a month and to try them. And it was a wonderful opportunity to have the people who are actually out on the streets. I mean, you look at Aquatis, for instance, who is very well known for customer service and their relationship with their customers. We try to have an equal relationship with them. We want to listen to them. We get feedback from them. The idea of taking a product and giving it to the market.
je me permets de vous couper.
Can I interrupt you? Can you just imagine that you have in front of you somebody from Mars and who has never heard of vaping, and you would tell him the story about cigarettes, and you would show him models that you have in a big basket. So first of all, the first e-cigarette that was created and the last model. What models would you show him to show him the evolution?
The Provape PV1, the Provape 2.0, the Provape 2.5, and the Provape P3, of course. No, listen, as an individual, I have about 160 mods from all over the world. I love collecting them. I have to tell you, there were 2 here that I looked at one and said, I hope it's not €1,000 because my wife will kill me when I get home. You know what I mean? So I enjoy the industry, and I think there are many people in our company that also are interested in vaping as an industry. But to answer your question directly, there are a lot of wonderful devices out there. Do I believe that my company produces the best? Of course, and that's what I should. That's why I'm working for that company. But we certainly are interested in some of the innovative ideas that companies are coming out with. We don't like to clone people. I'm amazed at how little Provape in its history has looked at its competition. They know what the customers want. They work with their dealers, and the dealers give us feedback. Our customers give us feedback. I was amazed that we didn't do as much research and development in the area of looking at our competition. But if you look at our success as a company, I don't think it's made a huge difference.
Antoine PICCIRILLI, vous qui êtes spécialisé plus dans le domaine.
You're specialized in the e-liquids sphere. Do you think the same evolution has taken place in that world, or well, nicotine levels, etc.? A lot of things have changed within the e-liquids. Of course, think about the savors, about the tastes, and do you think a lot of has changed within this sector, or not? Maybe the manufacturing ways of manufacturing as well. Well, to answer your question, it's very surprising because there's a skyrocketing innovation within the materials world, and the devices have improved quality-wise, and well, maybe I can say that sometimes we're exaggerating a bit when we're talking about wattage or voltage, but the two things, e-liquids and e-cigarettes, have different lives. And at the other hand, they form a couple. So you have after the big wave of the vapors, it's difficult to convince new people to start vaping. But we should see it as a trio, PG, VG, and aromas. And from there, I can say, okay, I would like to see more information on the nicotine levels and the delivery of nicotine. So Jacques Loisec yesterday said that the speed of transmission of nicotine to the brain is directly linked to the dependence and the addiction to tobacco, and that's what's going to form the strength of the liquids, of course, and maybe also for the future development. So Mr. Loisec has indeed said that nicotine is not dangerous if you administer it in the right dose, of course. Yes, absolutely. You don't have to swallow it, of course. But I would say that the delivery to the brain is indeed very important. And when you measure nicotine, you lose about 40 to 60% in nicotine when you vape it. And what is... I would say both of them are responsible for this. But he has also spoken about the capacity of the heating, the coil itself, mod compared to a regular cigarette, for example, will also make a difference for the smoker. So it's the temperature. Well, we asked ourselves, is there a way, can we make sure that the nicotine levels are a bit more stable when vaping or not? And you measure, for example, pH levels of e-liquids on the market, and then you have probably 90% with acid levels. And they're in a bionosed form, and they're not volatile. Also, health institutes in the United States have published studies where they say, okay, tobacco is killing people, but our e-liquids stabilize nicotine in a way. It's not the liquid itself that it's volatile, but it's in some way the nicotine. So the question is what you have to do, because is it first of all a product for pharmacies, or you have like an intersection of two things? First of all, it's a product of pharmacy, and on the other hand, it's a product from the industry. So we are facing a wall here. So the knowledge, scientific knowledge on e-cigarettes, do you think it is enough today as a young company, because you just started? Or do you think, okay, nothing is changing I have to look for the information myself. Well, yeah, you have to look for the information yourself. We are chemists, and when we develop an e-liquid, you have to have a team of chemists who have a certain expertise in this. You have mechanics, you have electricians, so it's a whole basket of knowledge that you have to use. You have to use this knowledge to create the good liquids. And I'm from the cosmetic world, and I've been working in the nutrition world. I've been in different worlds, but a product you inhale is like a product you eat because it enters your body. And as an e-liquid manufacturer, you have to know the composition of the liquid, of course. You have to know it perfectly. Same thing goes for manufacturers that produce materials. And apart from the e-liquids manufacturer, you have the aroma manufacturer, of course. It's another style. It's another know-how. And are there any communications or strategic links between those two worlds? So, do you think that it is a pity that there's no more links between those two worlds than there are today? Well, absolutely. For example, you have the sprays. You need the material that needs to be validated and the substance as well contained in the flask, and everything will be tested thoroughly. There will be studies. If not, you cannot launch a product onto the market. But with e-liquids, well, we have substances, nicotine, a couple of other substances in the liquid. But the problem is that there's not enough links between both worlds, and we are going to put 10 milligrams, for example, of nicotine, and in other products 5 milligrams. So if we can reduce these levels, we're going to make more money as well. We're going to save money. And maybe the e-cigarette has forgotten a certain audience. Some people want to go and take the e-cigarette, but they don't want to smoke a lot. They don't want a lot of nicotine. And they need also a device that is accessible to them. There's a lot of new materials on the market, and that's really good because it democratizes the market. But of course, we have to take the users into account. Maybe in the end of the 21st century, maybe 1 billion people will start smoking. So we have to take this into account as well. I mentioned the fact that there's a new industry evolving, the aroma industry. In France, you have grass. Do you see any special evolutions within these parallel industries? So people that say, okay, before some companies manufactured, for example, wicks, and they are going to pass on to another industry, for example, the aroma industry, because they see a niche. What is the evolution you see in there? No, I don't think PV, GV is a market that is not really interesting. And also, the formulas are very confidential, so it's not a new market. It has been... and of course, there's a couple of manufacturers that say, okay, we don't want to take the risk to change from one business activity to another activity. You have some producers that produce manufacturers that produce more than 120 or 130 million gallons of PV or GV, but only for e-cigarettes, of course. And there are also a number of manufacturers that started manufacturing aromas. We have the knowledge, for example, in the region of Grasse, which is the southern part of France. It is used for foods, But to go there from there to the e-markets, well, it is very important to take the aroma and the taste into account and to ensure that security is also taken into account. But also we have to design aromas. You cannot just simply add food aromas. But I think our network needs to be strengthened more. And what we see since a few months is that there are smaller teams of scientists who are innovating. And you see the innovation will be the buzzword for the next fairs, as you can see here in this magazine. So the important thing is to innovate. We have to improve our products. And the liquids, of course, cannot change as a nice woman would change dresses. That's the other part of the thing, of course. So when we were talking about the e-liquids, we had the electricity, the voltage. And when we are talking about this, the atomizers, for example, I'm going to give you some words and just let me know what you feel when you hear these words. Pyrex, Cantal. What is your emotion when you hear those words? So the technology that is used today in the atomizers, we see that the KLEREKOPERs change, that the resistance is changing, that the type of wicks are changing as well, and that you have microcoils with cotton, you have wicks in all kinds of silica, in all kinds of materials within the tanks. Do you think they will evolve rapidly, or are we facing a stagnation, a stabilization of this market?
I think for atomizers, some improvement. I think according to the market and vapors requirement, improvement is always happen. For example, at first beginning, we have the top coil, and with very limited capacity, maybe only 1 ml. And according to the requirement for the end user, we later increased to also top coil, but single coil, and the capacity increased to 0.6 ml. And later, we, especially for USA, many people don't like to see the wicks. So we create the bottom coil. Yeah, bottom coil. And we change from single coil to double coil. And also now, according to the more requirement for big clouds, and so it's sub-ohm. Sub-ohm is also sub-ohm.
Your headset.
Okay, yeah, sub-ohm atomizers come out also.
On a tendance aujourd'hui.
There's also a dichotomy. We see different KLEREKOPERs, atomizers, and there's atomizers with different resistances. You're one of the producers, and you use, for example, resistance wires. You use wicks, cotton, for example. This family of atomizers, do you think it is customized? Is it something which is going to develop and evolve a lot in the future, the market?
For KLEREKOPERs, I think airflow, and also maybe in the future we combine tanks and drippers together. Also, because with the growing up for high power, if too much power, actually the wicks, the chemical composition will change. So if the temperature is too high, then maybe higher than 400 degrees, then it's not safe. So maybe we change the wicks material in the future. Yeah, this is my idea.
Alors, je me retourne vers vous.
There's a number of words we've heard. Compatibility, for example, open systems to be able to attach to other systems. And we also have seen with the Bluetooth technology to be able to download information on the e-cigarettes. Some people think it's unnecessary, but still, the temperature, that's a buzzword today. It's a very important word. I don't know the brand, but I've heard that soon there are going to be temperature gauges within the atomizers to be able to check the way the liquid is going to be heated. What do you think about this?
The first thing that comes to mind, I remember when I first started vaping 4 years ago. Remember that? And if you put liquid in a cartomizer and you did it wrong and it burnt, then it was completely burnt and you had to start all over again. And how many of you have ever dumped an entire tank of liquid on your lap? One of the things that innovation did, of course, was to make the entire process easier. And that's important because our desire is to allow it to be a very easy, a very comfortable system. But some of the innovations that we have are meant to help people vape more effectively and more easily, but there's another part of the industry, and that's the fun part of the industry. You know, one thing I have always had in my mind is that I could have stopped vaping 2 or 3 years ago. I don't have enough nicotine now to really addict me or make it habit forming. Why am I vaping now? Because I enjoy it. I'm having more fun than a barrel of monkeys. And I don't want to quit, and I don't think I need to. I'm healthy. My lungs are better than they ever were. My cough is gone. My taste buds are back. But it's fun. And this is a brand new French e-liquid I've never tasted, and I'm enjoying it. And we have someone in the booth that gave me a flavor I never thought I would like, and I've been vaping on it for 2 days, you know? And by the way, natural flavors, which I'm beginning to learn about and enjoy. So we have 2 things. I think we have the need as companies to innovate so that people can vape more easily, more effectively, where we're giving higher quality vapor, we're giving more vapor. But then there's also the other aspect of the industry where we can have fun. You know, building coils and doing things, as long as it's safe, I think can be very fun.
Cette branche customisée, cette branche du fait maison.
So the atomizer that you construct at home, do you think that is a market that will develop more in the future or not?
I think so. I don't think it will ever take over the market. I think it will always be a smaller percentage of the market, but I don't think we should necessarily discount it, and that we're not necessarily, these 2 markets are not in competition with each other. They do have a lot of things in common. I guess my only concern is, you know, the pendulum theory that oftentimes when you have something, you have people who go off and maybe they go to the extreme. I am personally concerned about some of the things that people are doing in the vaping industry. It's not safe. I'm concerned also that if those things are allowed to continue and encouraged, that one major mishap could create a problem for the entire industry. And the challenge with that is if that happens and people who need to get off of cigarettes no longer have a viable alternative, that is going to be tragic in my view. So we need to have as an industry innovation that promotes safety, but on the other hand, while we're doing it, we should be having a heck of a lot of fun.
Cette crainte d'une homogénéité.
So after 2 days of conference, it's difficult to pronounce some words, but we have similar interests. So you have big tendencies, of course. The money thrives the industry, of course, and everybody will agree that if somebody starts vaping and there's a whole big community that follows, that more people will follow in the end. But do you think there could be a borderline effect as well? I do think that we have to take care of this. We have seen nice things during this fair, and What I'm worried about, or what I'm really interested in, is to look for the smokers and to be able to convince them to pass on to the electronic cigarette. And talking about this temperature, well, we have a liquid, we heat it, and what happens with the liquids? And we have put in place a very good technique, and the engineer of this technique is amidst our audience. And we have a technology which is l'ATD LAG, and I'm not going to enter into details on the abbreviation, but it's a technology which gives us which allows us to measure the stress, notwithstanding or independent of the molecule that is used, and to check whether the molecule is stable or not when the consumer uses it, or when he, for example, abuses it. Is it going to be stable or not? So this is a test that was developed by our colleague, and we can do this for nicotine, we can do this for aromas, we can do this for any product. This this new invention, are you going to distribute it with or to your competitors, for example, because today we know that science lacks budgets nowadays, and are you going to ask maybe the big audience to fund this research or not? Because today not a lot is invested in research and development. Are you going to share this knowledge? Absolutely. This is one of the reasons why we exist, also within Vape. And we want to create knowledge. We want to share the knowledge. If we have a methodology, for example, to define the substances and to define everything around the materials, and not only the liquids, but also for the materials, then I think we have to share this knowledge, and then we will be recognized as responsible professionals within the sector. And security is very important, of course, not only here, but also in the United States. So we all have a win-win situation when we do this. And that is also the reason why our director came to this fair. One thing that strikes me in what you said is that today there's an investment being done from universities, CRS, for example. So there's organizations who participate, publicly or not, to contribute to and to innovate the sector. Do you think it is something that exists in the United States as well? So science groups, students, for example, from universities who concentrate on this sector of e-cigarettes or not?
A good question. I think it's going to be incumbent upon the companies themselves to go out into the market and find them and create them. I don't know. I think we're a new enough industry that we're not on a lot of universities' radar, but I think it would be an excellent idea to put that on our radar. For instance, when I mentioned earlier that I believe that Europe and the United States and other markets stand together or fall together, that's something a lot of people believe, but we actually have to go out and make it happen. And I think, you know, one of the things that is fascinating about our new thing is that it has an IQ system that measures all of the different electrical components, and it's very intelligent, and it does some things, but again, it is certainly something that makes this particular unit more effective, but the core issue is still how does it translate to the consumer? How can we make that, and we have so many bright people coming through universities who have incredible ideas we haven't even thought up yet. I've talked to an engineer the other day.
Ce sont des gens qui viennent des universités, mais ce ne sont pas les universités.
There are people who come from universities, but do the universities participate directly into your projects or not?
No, we've pulled, as I mentioned, a number of, I think some of the, I just met an engineer that we added to our staff recently who just came fresh out of a university. I think the advantage of having people like that is they're excited about what they're doing, and I think they're motivated to do something incredible. Like so many of us, we came out thinking we could change the world, and it took us a while to realize that that's not as easy to do as it might seem when we're in university. But that excitement and that enthusiasm, and I mean, for instance, our engineers have experience. Some of them have been in the industry for a long time. Their experience is incredibly valuable. Their view of products and the production of products and technology is important. But the young people coming out that are full of that excitement, enthusiasm, that are in a different generation, can contribute a tremendous amount to this industry. I do believe we're going to have to go out and find them, though.
Un diplôme de la Vape.
Kind of diploma of the vape. Could that exist one day? What do you think of that? Well, I think we shall form someone, train someone on specific aspects of e-liquids, maybe not PhD, but who knows? I would like to take an example. For example, we went away, we started 6 months ago, we were dealing with our subject. Well, of course, it is quite confidential because it is research, and we need to identify persons from, e-liquids, from chemistry, and we went also to see, researchers. There was a guy in Poitiers who really makes incredible researches on those aspects. And in fact, he writes on Science Review and magazine, and he deals with all, these kind of things. And that's great recognition also for our sector. And then we had a doctor who also, is working on that, who's really sustains and supports the e-cigarette. I think those people can help us a lot. The only problem is that we not always ask them the right or the good questions. That's the point. And when you work with them, they will, solve a lot of questions, solve a lot of problems, and alone you would never have answered. What about big industries that are looking at you? And what do you think of that? Are you afraid of them in the capacity of innovation? Do you think they have a most performing way of acting, or is that wrong? You're maybe not afraid at all. What is your opinion on that? Because you are, really new entries. So aren't you afraid that behind you will have enormous revolutions and big groups, big companies, and then maybe you could lose some of your identity? Maybe. But if I consider R&D history in all sectors, all fields, it's not only a trend, it's the so-called open innovation. You go and look for innovation that were not made at home. So big groups, big pharmaceutical groups did that. And you have, a lot of people who are specialists. You just go and see them and ask them and work with them and, on different themes and topics. And I think for e-cigarette, that will be the same. Maybe, I don't really figure out a center of research on that. We do not come from chemistry, really. So, but if you put together knowledge on e-liquids, knowledge on chemistry, we will be as good as those majors, and that's the main idea. And at the end of the day, we'll really manage to retrieve that market, that share, and really that that market which is very high demanding. Tim, before giving the floor to the audience, have you heard about induction vape?
No.
La
But
réponse est claire.
that's not surprising. I am not an engineer, and I'm not technical, and I'm very glad. You should be also glad I'm not an engineer. I prefer the marketing side of things, which, by the way, I think is important that all of the components of the companies work together. Let me give you an example, and I don't want to offend anyone. And again, I'm not speaking as an engineer, but I was at a conference, and somebody came up to show me their mod, and I noticed for the first time that they had a top cap that had a hole in the center, and it went directly to the battery. And they were putting on Kaifun, I think, or something, and I said, so this new connection takes the 510 connector and puts it directly on the battery. But your airflow is also there, which means you're going to be introducing e-liquid to the top of a battery. And my gut sense, even though I'm not an engineer, so I took it to our chief engineer. And he said, well, of course, I don't think studies have been done, but he said, I think we need to get some more research to find out if, in fact, that is healthy or not. So I went to the company, and I said, you have absolutely beautiful mods. They're incredibly well built, but I have a concern. Would it be okay if I had our engineers do some research and get back to you? And we did, and their recommendation was, we don't feel it is a good idea to introduce e-liquid to the top of a battery, and we're going to actually look at that. Now, does that have to do with our product? Yes, because you know, our way of helping electrical connection at Provape has been to develop a new thread system that has better electrical connection and an electronic innovation that literally, I mean, this if I move this and I move the thread, even though it vapes, this system knows that the thread has been changed. So we're working on that innovation. But does it mean that we should also open up our top caps and take the center post out and put a connection directly on the battery? No. And our research in that area, I think, could help other companies. And with e-liquid, there are a lot of concerns coming in the US about temperatures and so forth and so on. So how do we solve that? We have the people who are experts in that industry meet with engineers who are experts in our industry. We talk together, we work together, and then this is important, we publish papers. I mean, I have a PhD who owns some companies, and he's one of our dealers. He has a PhD in health. He's been concentrating on that, and I said, why hasn't your voice been heard? Let's work together and make this industry better. So I told him as we met first, I said, official invitation. I don't know who you are, I know you're in that, but let's work together.
Vous êtes bien trouvé. C'est aussi
Okay, that was it is a great friendship, so excellent you've just met here. Really perfect. Let's give the floor to the... Oui.
We also would like to work with Innokin as well.
Très bien. Bon, vous échangerez donc vos cartes de visite. Est-ce que
Okay, we can exchange our business cards.
Antoine, voilà, il y a...
Merci.
Thank you. I have a question for...
In English, sorry. I'm struggling to think in English now. The question of natural flavors versus artificial flavors, obviously with the standardization work happening in France and in the UK, it's a big question. It's a big part of the market. There's a huge consumer demand for it, even though it's largely, I believe, misguided. But you know, there is this notion that natural is better. And of course, in the context of flavorings and chemistry, natural is not better because it's a much more complex set of chemistry species mixing together. But what is your view on the approach that we need to take as an industry to demonstrate responsibility while also ensuring that the products that the smokers need and want remain available to them?
Okay. It's not an easy question.
Sorry.
Yes. Well, we go. Yes, I think that it's important to note that all the molecules which is now registered for food application are re-examined by EFSA, European Food Safety Agency today. And all the class of the flavors molecules, cetone, aldehydes, essential oils, and so on. Well, and we can imagine that a selection will be done in the next future with the rule out of some molecules, okay? Second, I think that, like Professor Fassalinos, that, for instance, I think that you have artificial flavors, but they are very well now in terms of molecules. And I insist, a manufacturer of e-liquids has to be now all the molecules present in the bottle, like a manufacturer of car, of a device. Okay, it's clear. And for me, it's more easy to control an artificial flavor than a natural, because you have a natural variation in the nature, and when you done a vegetable extraction by a solvent, okay, you have a lot of molecules. And in different concentration, it's very, very complex. And to have a perfect knowledge of the composition, it's very, very, very difficult. Yes, very difficult. And a constant composition for a constant efficacy, for a constant flavor and sensation and so on. It's very, very complex.
Il a répondu à votre question?
Did we answer your question? Do you have some more questions coming from the audience for our friends here around the table? Yes, good afternoon. I have a question. I would like to know if we have material that is able to analyze smokes in order to have a control of the quality at home, for example, and on each product that will be launched on the market in order to be sure that the smoke that will be inhaled is not only the analysis of the e-liquid, but to have really a knowledge on on vapor. So could you answer that question, Antoine? It is a very interesting question. We were dealing with that this morning. In AFNOR, we have big reflection with LNE, with labs that are really focused on that. Tools which will be used inside a directive. And we have different techniques in the analysis of gas, of air. We have methods to go and seize those particles and to analyze them. But for e-cig, in fact, we are trying to do that. We need some more time, but I think we'll manage that. And of course, here again, we have to work together between technicians, between physicians, between specialists, engineers. So yes, we need to really work on a very specific item. Did we answer your question? Do we have another question in the audience? If we do not have any more questions, I would like to conclude that session. Yes, we have here. Last question. Listening to you all, you work on mods, on very sophisticated product. Are you actually leaving the industry of tobacco, which is making inquiries on e-cigarette, and they try to improve that product, try to convince people to switch from tobacco, traditional cigarette, to vaping. And at the end of the day, having convinced them, you will keep those people choosing very sophisticated products. So what do you think of that? Because, it is really like a niche. So what is that strategy? Does that inspire you something? Do you want to react to that comment from our friend? Or possible strategy from certain companies?
Would you rephrase it just a little bit? Complicated. I'm trying to make sure I have it correctly.
L'industrie du tabac se focalise, d'après ce qu'on sait, sur...
So the industry is focusing on models which are so-called Cigalike with batteries and having the same shape of a cigarette. Our friend here was saying that those models...
I'm going to get in trouble here. In the United States, this is just my experience, my personal opinion, okay? I'm not going to speak for even my company specifically. My concern is that a lot of the studies that have been used by politicians to try to ban vaping literally say that electronic cigarettes are not effective in getting people to stop smoking. And it is it's my personal evaluation from my own reading, is that many of those studies were done on the small cigarette systems. And it is my impression that the larger systems are more effective in getting people to stop smoking. And in our state, we had to convince the politicians of two things. Number one, that there was a difference between systems. And that secondly, the studies done on the bigger systems were more effective in helping people stop smoking. The other thing we had to convince the industry is that the enemy is still the tobacco industry. I wonder sometimes if they did not purchase certain companies in order to make sure that we had a problem. I have a major problem with this being classified as a tobacco product. And if you look at who's pushing that, some of those companies own e-cigarette companies. And so I believe personally, and again, I'm not speaking from Provape, I'm speaking from my personal, I believe that if you want to quote an enemy in the industry, it's been the tobacco industry from the beginning, and I think they're getting more clever in how they fight the vaping industry as a whole.
Ces menaces réglementaires qui pèsent.
What about these constraints on material and mainly the delivery, nicotine delivery, which will be demanding by, I mean, in the directive from the European Union? Are you afraid of that as, as a producer of those products which can deliver such different rates of nicotine?
I find it interesting that Harvard University did a study on marijuana. They said it is 50 times worse than cigarettes in terms of tar and other things, and it can do detrimental things to the brain, and yet our politicians are trying to legalize it. At the same time, Harvard University did another study that basically said e-cigs are harmless, and our politicians are trying to ban it. It makes no sense to me at all. I believe that what is important for us is to get the knowledge of the industry. We have anecdotal evidence. We're a new industry. Of course we don't have long-term studies. But I am doing a new ad for our company that says 5 million people can't be wrong. And the idea is that the anecdotal evidence that we have is beginning to be backed up by scientific study. And I believe that the industry is healthy. Is it always healthy? No. Do we have safeguards? But let's look at the e-liquid industry for a minute. When I first started ordering juice 4 years ago from nationally known companies, I would get a plastic bottle with no contents and hand-labeled things. And I went to a congressman in the United States, a senator in the U.S. Senate, and I showed him an e-liquid bottle and said, look, there are warning labels, there are all of this information, it is packaged in a level 6 lab, it's this, it's that, or whatever, and nobody told them to do it. The industry did it themselves. And I think people need to understand that many of us are committed and have always been committed to making this industry safe and effective. And I can tell you, the bottom line for me, it always comes back to this. I haven't smoked a cigarette in 4 years. And I had a lady walk up to me in the mall and give me a hug. I'd never met her before. And she said, you introduced my husband a year ago to electronic cigarettes, and my children love you, and I care about you, and I just wanted to give you a hug. My husband's health has improved, right?
Non, effectivement, la vape s'inscrit dans une problématique.
In fact, it is a very serious idea, and a lot of doctors agree on that. So really, we have a great effort which has been made, and we are here to demonstrate that a lot of work, a lot of experiences in AFNOR, but also research and development and training, and we have great evolution, and material is getting better and better. So really, this is fundamental, and we are struggling for that. We have a scourge, which is the way of consumption, which is very, very dangerous. So now, again, if someone in the audience has a last question, because we need to conclude, do you have a microphone?
Antoine, un autre micro?
Hi. Yes. And a common problem with e-liquid sometimes is that most of the clearomizers are still made of this polycarbonate or this plastic clearomizers. And most of these e-liquid or some of these e-liquids are so aggressive that it's causing these cracking tanks and these cloudy tanks, which means that this plastic is going into this liquid and people are inhaling this. And it is not common that e-liquid bottles are warning of this fact, because and most of these clearomizers, even the starter kits, are still using this polycarbonate. So my question is, how is the development in this with this topic, and is the development? Do you think the future is more and more going into these glass clearomizers, and do you think there will be it will be a way when that these liquids are gonna show. Yeah, so you know what the problem is with
Alors,
this.
cette interaction e-liquide polycarbonate,
So that interaction e-liquids polycarbonate for the tank. Do you want to react on that, Antoine?
En fait,
At the end of the day, we work in AFNOR as an interaction. We make an analysis of e-cigarette. We, of course, explosion, absorption of the product, and so on and so forth, chemical risks. And here we try to analyze that point, which is the interaction between content and product. This is fundamental for every kind of product, even for mineral water, you need to see the interactions. Having said that, when you drink something, you always have to do that. And that will be done in that directive. So, in fact, polycarbonates, we know that we have phthalates which have to be studied. Everyone tries in the industry to diminish that content or even to ban it. But we'll be obliged in the future with that directive to go and see and analyze those particles and see how we can store a liquid. And that will be compulsory. So good. So that makes part of innovation too. Perfect. And works in progress. I would like to thank you, our friend, Liu FUQING. Thank you, Tim, for your participation too. Thank you, Antoine. And innovation is perfect. Creating new product is perfect. Trying to trade them is excellent. And trying to talk about that is even better. So we need to really make advertisements on that. And this is our next session. How make advertisement on that and advertising in France, but also elsewhere, in the UK, in the United States. How shall we make good advertising of that vaping community and industry? Thank you very much.